All right, so Tucker Carlson, arguably the most successful white nationalist propagandist in the country, recently had on a Penn law professor named Amy Wax on not his main show on Fox News, but I guess this other show he does called Tucker Carlson Today, where he sits in front of this rustic wooden set and pretends to be an average working class guy. He had on this law professor here, Amy Wax, on his show to deliver one is arguably, in my opinion at least, the most insane racist tirade that I've ever seen on a Tucker Carlson broadcast, which is obviously a very high bar to cross, but she somehow manages to successfully do it by complaining about ungrateful immigrants in her view. So warning, there is a little bit of a high-pitched noise in this clip, but I've looked around and it seems like it's just a part of the original audio from the show, which seems kind of weird given the budget for the show, but nonetheless, let's just go ahead and get into this absolutely wild clip here.
How is that different from vandalism? It just seems like people coming in and wrecking everything that was valuable in an institution that they never built themselves.
It's very reckless and destructive. It's very vindictive. It's very angry.
Yeah. Where does that anger come from, do you think?
I think there is just a tremendous amount of resentment and shame of non-Western peoples against Western peoples for Western peoples' outsized achievements and contributions. I mean, it's really unbearable. I was actually, leaving aside American blacks, who I think do feel that resentment. And
okay, let's just stop it right here real quick. Okay, so already, and this isn't even the most insane part of the clip, already she's suggesting that people from, I guess, developing countries around the world and immigrants who come from those developing countries to the United States, that they're just ungrateful when they point out the racist institutions that have existed since the founding of this country. They're just ungrateful for the great Western superiority that has existed around the world and the Western dominance and the great, achievements that the Western world has made. And she doesn't even point out any of the actual history that led up to any of the things that she's talking about here. It's not that the West has been historically superior and we're just, really great at, inventing new things and building an economic system. No, we have exploited all of these other countries throughout centuries and centuries of colonialism, followed by chattel slavery and the ongoing system of capitalism and imperialism, where we exploit the resources and the labor of all of these countries. We destroy them with invasions and coup attempts and installations of far-right dictators and funding of death squads. All of these different things, in her mind, don't exist. And it simply just boils down to they're shameful because they're just, I don't know, not as good as white people, I guess. I mean, literally at face value, that's what she's saying here. But again, this isn't even the worst of it. She continues. And
shame and envy. I mean, it's this unholy brew of sentiments. I was talking to Glenn Lowry about this bizarre fact that Asian and South Asian, Indian doctors at Penn Med, which I know people there and I know what's going on there, that they're on the ramparts for the anti-racism initiative for Dump on America. America's an evil, racist place. These are immigrants.
The number one highest income group in America
is hate America.
Right.
A goodly number of them,
but you're from a group, I mean, first of all, I hate even thinking in terms of groups anyway, because what matters is the individual.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? This motherfucker, Tucker Carlson, is actually sitting here and saying, well, I hate this. I hate thinking about groups and different racial lines. I just want everybody to be thought of as an individual. I mean, this is the exact same conservative propaganda we hear from all sorts of different types of Republicans and conservatives. They always bring up that one MLK quote that they take out of context. People should not be judged by the color of their skin, but should be judged by the content of their character, which they completely take out of context because the entire speech that MLK was delivering on that day by the Lincoln Memorial, the whole point of the speech was that we as a country have not reached that ideal yet, and Republicans, conservatives like Tucker Carlson just want to pretend like we moved past all of the racial issues and the racist institutions and systems that have propped up white people disproportionately in this country for centuries. He just wants to, and conservatives want to, just throw that all under the table, pretend it doesn't exist, pretend as if all of the problems within the United States have been completely solved, and anybody who pretends otherwise, well, you're the actual racist. racist, right? And again, her rhetoric that she's using here, talking about how black people feel shame in this country, shame and anger. Yeah, of course they should feel fucking anger, because we built this country on a system of chattel slavery, okay? The entire economic foundations of this country, the founding of this country and our Constitution was founded on those ideals and on those institutions, followed by literally over a century of Jim Crow laws and continued exploitation of black people within the United States, followed by, even to this day, a massive gulf in white wealth versus black wealth in this country that has been maintained by the same capitalist system that branched immediately out of chattel slavery. It's like they just completely ignore all of this and want to pretend as if all of these racist institutions have already been dismantled. And not only have they been dismantled, but now it's actually minorities that have the upper hand in this situation, according to Tucker Carlson.
Obviously. But as long as we are, if you're a member of the highest income, highest achievement group in America, and you're looking down another group, native-born whites, for example, and saying you're the problem, like, how does that work exactly?
Famously oppressed people in the United States, native-born whites. Okay, yeah, white people are the group of people who have been, historically exploited in this country.
Well, that is, to me, utterly bizarre and fascinating. And
why does anybody put up with that?
Right, I'm not saying all Indian immigrants are this way. I'm just saying, you look at the roster of, who's leading the programs, the endless number of programs where they talk about diversity and racism and all the racism that people have to encounter in medicine and how racist medicine is and all this. And you see these brown faces or you see these Asian faces and you think, literally you think, so you're coming from your country, which you're implying is equal or better than our country.
Literally.
And you're telling us how awful we are. Well, what's the explanation for that?
China's an ethno-state, by the way, which no one ever says. It's about the Han Chinese, and if you're not, that's the problem with the Uyghurs. That's their religion. They're not Han Chinese. Whatever. I'm not even judging. I'm just saying people from there have no right to judge the United States.
But they very much feel that they do. And so
Okay, so she actually goes on to continue, and she even, uses the Trump rhetoric of shithole countries and says, well, yeah, you are kind of coming from shithole countries. Again, just completely ignoring the entire history of colonialism, of imperialism, of chattel slavery, of the continued capitalist exploitation where, even our global financial system as we have it existing right now, with the IMF, the World Bank, giving massively predatory loans to the same countries that we looted for centuries, now continuing to exploit their resources, allowing U.S. corporations to profit from their resources, profit from their cheap, or in some cases, slave labor in many of these countries. They completely ignore all of that and just pretend as if it's white people superior, Europeans superior to all of these different places around the world, and that's why we're better. It has nothing to do with any of these other systems or institutions that are being maintained to this day. It's just a matter of racial resentment, and I guess they're just jealous of white people. That's literally what this boils down to. And again, this is a fucking Penn law professor, okay? So try to square this with the narrative that propagandists like Tucker Carlson come up with all the time about how all these college campuses are just full of these radical woke Marxist professors. Okay, I'm still in college right now. I've never had a Marxist professor. I've never even had one that's even beyond being maybe a social democrat in line with somebody like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. And meanwhile, you have motherfuckers like this who are active Penn law professors, tenured law professors who are teaching students. She is openly using egregious white nationalist propaganda. Again, and on top of that, it's not even true, the shit that she's saying, right? Implying that, it's just a matter of jealousy, it's just a matter of resentment and shame. Really? Is that where we're at right now? But just a little bit more information on some of her history, because this is not the first time that she's come out and said shit like this, and she's actually getting a lot of pushback right now, not only for this interview, but also previous things that she said. So here from Axios, they say, Wax's latest remarks come as the university is already facing pressure to take disciplinary action against her for comments she made about Asian immigrants in December, and the school launched a review process earlier this year which could lead to sanctions. Not exactly sure what that means, but Penn declined to comment on the status of the review until the proceedings are finished, and they say Wax's history of making inflammatory comments traces back beyond December, and in 2019, Wax said America would be better off with more whites and fewer non-whites. So again, it's unambiguously racist. You cannot make an argument around this that is not centered around the superiority of the white race. That is exactly what she is implying here. And also they say in 2018, she inaccurately claimed that black students rarely graduate high in their class at Penn Law. So she's not only using white nationalist propaganda, but she's not even fucking right on the basics of what she's saying. And then she's extrapolating her premises to the entire global order that we have existing right now under our current system that we have. I mean, it's mind-blowing that this is somebody who is teaching at a college right now, teaching students, and not only that, but she's able to come out and give public statements like this, just unrelenting in an unrelenting way, pushing white nationalist propaganda. It's absolutely insane. And again, completely glossing over, kind of hard to square facts like this here from Al Jazeera. Rich countries drained $152 trillion. $152 trillion from the global south since 1960. So I wonder if this might, in combination with imperialism, in combination with the continued global neoliberal capitalist order that continues to oppress these countries and oppress their workers there, I wonder if any of this and the history of chattel slavery, the history of colonialism, has anything to do with the current state of the global order, has anything to do with the so-called superiority of countries like the United States, who have profited and continue to profit off of these systems that are being maintained. So listen, it is absolutely fucking wild that this is where we're at in the United States, where these are like not only just positions that people have, but very mainstream positions that are being promoted on some of the largest platforms in the country. I mean, this is why we say that Tucker Carlson is a white nationalist. He is unambiguously pushing white nationalist propaganda on a very regular basis and agitating in a way that is not only inaccurate, but also just absurdly racist at face value.